This is undeniable that he's costing them wins. Even the people supporting the load management would acknowledge that. The Pelicans were 2-8 and played last night without Lonzo, who hasn't been very good, but also without Brandon Ingram, who's been sensational up to this point this season. And Paul George comes back, gives you 33 in 24 minutes. He was great. He came back earlier from the injury than I expected, and he looked better immediately than I expected. Credit to him, by the way, who, if we remember correctly, the Los Angeles Clipper this year that was top 3 in the MVP last year, league-wide regular season, it's not Kawhi Leonard, it's Paul George, who was top 3 Defensive Player of the Year voting, top 3 MVP, something Kawhi Leonard was not. But yeah, he is absolutely unequivocally costing them wins. And I know that the argument is, well, it won't matter if he's better in the postseason because of it, but that's an unknowable. And I know people say last year, well, how can you criticize that he missed 22 games when they won the title? You know who the second most load-managed player in the NBA last year was? Joel Embiid. So I'm just curious, when the Raptors played the Sixers in round 2 of last year's playoffs, if the Raptors had won, would that also have been a victory for load management? One of those load-managing players was going to win, one was going to lose. But the last point, Danny, and I think it's the one that's most relevant, last year's Raptors, he rested 22 games last year. They lost 5 of them. They were 17-5. He has missed 3 games this year. They've lost all 3 of them. The Clippers do not appear to be nearly as equipped as the Raptors were to deal without Kawhi Leonard.
Because they're not as deep.
They're not as deep.
They don't have the depth there. There absolutely is costing them games. In the narrative last year, I think load management is getting way too much credit for Kawhi's success in the Raptors championship. First of all, he was still hobbled in the playoffs, and it was a pretty amazing performance by him to fight through the quad injury that he was dealing with. You did have a Warriors team which was decimated as well with injury, so I think it gets too much credit in general, and I think the Clippers are being a little bit too cute with this, and it is going to cost them. And I wonder, do you think there's a scenario where in the back end of the season, this might blow up in their face because they do start looking at, say, hey, we have to pick up the pace a little bit. We do have to start winning games, maybe to get in those top 4 spots or somewhere in there where I think it could backfire on the Clippers.
As an aside, Paul George finished up the game, even though he did have 33 points, and said he felt terrible, said he felt bad, like he could have done more, said it felt like a preseason game, although his shoulders did feel healthy, which is the takeaway. But he gives you 33 and 9 on a game where he said he wasn't playing that great. Could he get better enough where Kawhi doesn't have to play all these games?
Listen, where Paul George is talking about is the Clippers as a team were horrific defensively. He had 5 turnovers, and he only played 24 minutes. I'm sure what he's really talking about is Paul George is not here to play 24 minutes, and in those 24 minutes, he was in foul trouble. He had the 5 fouls, and so that was part of it. I don't know exactly what their plan was minutes-wise, but I wonder how much the foul trouble played into it, at least to a degree. But yeah, Paul George coming back makes it a lot more palatable when Kawhi Leonard misses games. It's why people really started paying attention to this last week. I was on this 2 weeks ago when 4 games into the year he missed a game because I said, hold on, you're going to load manage before Halloween when Paul George is not even there yet. I thought PG might miss 20 games. They said it would be around 10 and it ended up being right around 10. If the Clippers knew that, the fact that Kawhi couldn't deal with it until Paul George got back, that this wasn't the very first game of the year that he missed, or even wait another week until you and Paul George get on the floor together. But yes, it is costing them. And how deep do people think the West is? Because I believe, with no disrespect to the Mavericks or the Spurs or the Suns, who are a really surprising team, I think there are 5 excellent basketball teams in the Western Conference. There's obviously both teams in L.A. There's Utah, which added Conley, added Bojan Bogdanovic, had a great offseason. There's Denver, which was the 2 seed last year, that if Jokic gets it going, can be a very dangerous team. And there's Houston, who just beat the Clippers a couple nights ago. 5 teams. One of those teams will be on the road in the first round, and one of those teams will be home after the first round. Go ahead, Dan.
And that's what I was referencing. At the back end of the season, if the Clippers find themselves outside of those top 4 seeds, do they all of a sudden start to change their methodology, and then it all blows up in their face? It just, to me, it's way too early to go with this extreme of the rest.
And I would argue it's not the top 4 seeds you're worried about. It's the top 3. Because if you are 4, yeah, you'll have home court, but you're playing one of the 5. You're playing one of those 5. One of those teams going home in the first round. Before the year, I said I thought it would be the Clippers. everyone thought it was a take for this just to make a take, like just to get it. The reason I feel that way and felt that way is because we knew Paul George was going to miss time, and we knew Kawhi was going to load manage, and the idea that they're just going to be able to roll out of bed come the postseason, and even if I'm wrong that they'd be gone in the first round, they are putting themselves in position where of those 5 great teams, 4 and the Clippers, they would have to beat 3 of them in a series to go to the NBA Finals. They don't get the Kings in round 1 or whomever the 7 or the 8 seed is. To me, it's damaging, and it's risky, and we'll see how it plays out.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.